Ah, the 80s. So many great action movies, and one thing many of them have in common is Bill Paxton in bit parts.
You must first change course or you risk being shot down.
But also writer Steven D'Souza. Let's go down the list. 48 Hours, The Running Man, Die Hard. Hell, I'll throw Ricochet in there.
I guess a Beretta in the butt beats a butterfly in the boot, huh?
48 Hours was a big hit for producer Joel Silver, who was the top dog when it came to Hollywood blockbusters in the 80s. And when the studio wanted to find a vehicle for the up-and-coming star Arnold Schwarzenegger, they dusted off a script by Joseph Loeb and Matthew Wiseman, which told the story of an Israeli ex-military commando who had sworn off violence to try to live a peaceful life. The script was a serious drama, but Silver wanted a crowd pleaser. So he brought in his 48 Hours scribe to bump up the comedy and the entertainment value. One stipulation: don't let Arnold talk too much.
I'll be back, Ben.
Arnold Schwarzenegger came from a small Austrian village and set his sights on bigger things at a young age. He started to make a name for himself in bodybuilding, which eventually led him to the United States. But bodybuilding competitions didn't pay much at the time, and he and a friend worked as bricklayers. Then, fast forward a few decades.
Governor-elect Arnold Schwarzenegger.
For the people to win, politics as usual must lose.
So kids, apply yourself, I guess. Somewhere in the middle, he started acting in movies. He got some attention in Stay Hungry, but really began to make his way in Hollywood with breakout roles in the sword and sandal epic Conan the Barbarian and the low-budget but ambitious sci-fi thriller The Terminator. But neither of these films had him playing a relatable human. Enter Commando. Here he is as a father, a nature lover, a music enthusiast.
Why not they just call him Girl George? It will cut down all the confusion, I think.
And a guy who can carry a 600-pound tree with one arm. Relatable. The studio was worried about him delivering lines with his thick accent, so they tried to limit the amount of dialogue scenes in the film. He was nervous too, and told director Mark Lester that he was terrified the night before filming. It seems he overcame it, although according to Lester, the pressure was on filming this scene. The producers were standing by, and Arnold was having trouble getting through his lines.
My daughter has been kidnapped. He's the only chance I've got of finding her. If he sees me or I lose him, they'll kill her.
But then he picked up a phone booth and everyone moved on. John Matrix did have a few more character moments in an early cut of the film, including this scene that showed a little more depth to the guilt he felt for being away for much of Jenny's childhood, and an explanation of what happened to her mother.
She died when Jenny was born.
I'm sorry.
I was in Laos at the time. So I came back intending to raise her. But I was never home. When she was 3, I was in Lebanon. When she was in grammar school, I was in Angola.
I can see why they cut it, but I think it's a solid scene and would have made the movie a bit more grounded. But fuck it, let's get some more machine guns in here. Mark Lester had a unique career in the early 80s.
To fail this class. Now, what is the answer? What is the answer? Please.
He still calls Commando his favorite. The daughter, Jenny, was played by Alyssa Milano, who was 13 at the time. She had debuted in the sitcom Who's the Boss the previous year. She said Arnold helped her with her math homework in between setups. Lots of actresses tried out for the part of Cindy. Rae Dawn Chong was initially passed on because the producers thought she wouldn't have chemistry with Arnold. Ultimately, they gave her a shot, and she impressed them with her sense of humor.
Hey. Okay.
Why does everyone in this movie think she's a hooker? Anyway, she played Squeak in The Color Purple the same year. Very similar films. Depending on what version of the story you believe, the actor originally cast as Bennett was either fired during rehearsal or after the first day of filming. Either way, Vernon Wells got the news that they wanted him with almost no time to prepare, and he was on a plane the next day. They didn't even have time to change the costume, tailored for the original actor. The Australian had made an impression in George Miller's The Road Warrior, and apparently Joel Silver originally wanted him for the role. Silver had used him as one of the killer mutants in Weird Science and thought he'd be good in this. The rest of the cast of baddies was rounded out by Dan Hedaya, who was friends with the studio head at the time, Scott Rudin. Raul Julia was originally considered. And David Patrick Kelly, who played a scumbag in 48 Hours the year before.
What's happening, Luther? I'm sorry about the door, man. Did that hurt? It looked real painful when you slammed into it.
He was cast to add a little comic relief. I'd say he does a pretty good scumbag.
Take care. Oh, here. Have some beers in Valverde Matrix. It'll give everyone a little more time with your daughter.
You're a funny guy, Sully. I like you. That's why I'm going to kill you last.
The character of Cook was played by Bill Duke, who has a screen presence unlike anyone, and was great as an intimidating antagonist to Arnold's John Matrix. Until he wasn't. Bill Duke was an actor and director in TV before breaking out on the big screen in Commando. He went on to do The Predator with Schwarzenegger and Joel Silver a few years later. Side note, this is Ava Cadell. I know because I paused the end credits of the copy I taped off of cable when I was 14 to make sure she got proper credit. She ended up starring in some softcore movies in the 90s, including a few for TNA action auteur Andy Sedaris. Perhaps we'll discuss him in another video. This movie was rare, even for 1985, in that it was filmed entirely in California, mostly around LA. The bad guy compound, what else would you call it, was filmed in 2 locations. These scenes near the beach were filmed at the Hearst Castle because it was the only place they could find that would let them set off huge explosions. These buildings were facades built for the production. The Harold Lloyd Estate, also known as Green Acres, was used for the garden shootout. If it looks familiar, it's because the same location was used for the shootout scene near the end of Beverly Hills Cop the previous year. The fictional country of Valverde was a South/Central American country used by writer Steven de Souza and appeared in films from the 80s to the early 90s to depict a Spanish-speaking country similar to Cuba or Nicaragua, without pissing anybody off too much. The Valverde Airport featured in Commando is really a redressed Long Beach airport, which apparently does exist. Mark Lester was inspired by a lot of different films while bringing Commando to life. Some surprising, like crediting Nazi propagandist Leni Riefenstahl with informing the way he concentrated on Schwarzenegger's physique in certain scenes. To less surprising, John Matrix's penchant for a funny quip.
What'd you do with Sully?
I let him go.
After dispatching a baddie was a callback to James Bond's signature cocky style. Lester said that he thinks of his films as pop art, and that the exaggerated tone of the film was always meant to be bigger than life, if not outright absurd. A lot of more recent critiques of the film seem to attribute the style of this movie to being a relic of 80s excess, but the filmmakers were well aware of what they were trying for, even at the time they were making it. The original ending from the script was meant to involve a boat chase and fight to the death on the beach. But time and budget limitations dictated that they had to scale it down. The mano-a-mano showdown ended up being shot at a real working boiler room on the Fox lot. Because of this, a lot of scrapes and bruises befell the actors during the fight. But director Lester said they kept on going. Neither one wanted to back down. As for Arnold's famous line, after throwing a pipe clean through Bennett's chainmail vest, and I suppose abdomen and spine,
Let off some steam, Bennett.
they tried a few different options on set.
I hate small talk. I think it was too much pressure for you, Bennett. Can't take the pressure, Bennett, huh?
I think they went with the right one. The line and the rest of the movie seemed to work with audiences, and the film was a hit. It cemented Arnold as one of Hollywood's biggest action stars and propelled producer Joel Silver into blockbuster territory. He followed it up with some of the biggest action films of all time. With the glory days of the 80s well in the past, the over-the-top action of Commando will probably never be topped. But we could still bask in the terse simplicity of its storytelling and the shameless embrace of its crowd-pleasing mega-violence for years to come. R.I.P. 81 valiant soldiers. Your sacrifice was not in vain.